is now 6 p.m. and we are out of closed executive session. We will reconvene the regular meeting of the Board of Education with the pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Booker.
Here.
Mr. Herrera.
Here.
Mrs. Haupt.
Here.
Ms. Mayville.
Here.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Here.
Mr. Zicker.
Here.
Alrighty. Before we start the regular meeting of the board, as a reminder, all board members are expected to follow our approved meeting norms and board protocol. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda of the regular meeting of the Board of Education for August 19th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Haupt.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Zicker.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Next up, celebrations, positive highlights. Is there anything any board members would like to share tonight on district celebrations? I was gonna say, I was fortunate enough to be at the, what do you call it?
Kickoff.
The kickoff this morning, and for the elementary teachers, and then the kickoff at 2:45 for the secondary teachers. Everyone seemed happy and rested and energized, and I learned that teachers are no different than students in that they will all sit at the back of the auditorium. So it was good to see everyone there. That was fun. Anyone else? Alrighty, moving along. Committee reports, Facilities and Long Range Planning Committee. Anything to add to the minutes? Any questions for committee members? Alrighty, Ed Services on August 7th. Any questions or comments on the Ed Services committee minutes? Okay. Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee.
So I would add, I was not there at the last minute because I couldn't get out of a meeting that I was in for my day job. But Frank and I had talked previously, and I think we kind of had to acknowledge as we came to the end of this year that as a committee, one of the biggest mandates we have on that committee as a required committee is to do the evaluation of the student handbook. It wasn't included or involved in any meeting agenda until the very end of the year, and we sort of viewed it as, well, we don't have any updates from press yet, and so I think we just kind of collectively agreed that we don't want to do that again next year. We don't want to wait, so we've taken a proactive step to add a 5th meeting to the year, and we are going to have, as a part of every agenda, a segmental review of the handbook. So certain sections at a time, and then also, I know from administrative side, they're gonna look to find the broadest way of involving the broadest number of people in the discussions around those sections, whether it's to make it available for them to participate by Zoom, or for them to, obviously we'll highlight when we're gonna talk about what sections, and then people can provide written responses to input they might like to have about the handbook. And then, of course, we still will do the evaluations based upon the recommendations from press when those come at some point in time. But for lots of reasons, press is very late in the year getting, like into the early summer before we get them. But it was just broadly agreed that we wanted to be more intentional about that particular charge to that committee. So to that end, we will begin to do that with this year's agendas. So, and anybody who wants to participate, should, and in whatever method that we are able, or methods that we're able to put together to make that available, we hope people will avail themselves of that and in smaller bite-sized pieces be able to review what's going to be discussed and provide any input, feedback, questions, etc.
Sounds like a good plan. Any questions for Ms. Whitcomb? Alrighty, Business Services Committee meeting. Mr. Booker, Mr. Ferrer, anything? Share, any questions?
I've got nothing to add.
Okay. Alright, moving on. Public comments. At this time, members of the public and employees of District 100 may make public comments. As a reminder, any person appearing before the board is expected to address the board only at the appropriate time, follow the directives of the board president to maintain order and decorum, identify oneself, limit comments to 3 minutes, and conduct oneself with respect and civility toward others. We have one sign up tonight, Rebecca Landy.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Landy. I'm a special education teacher with the early childhood program. A little over a year ago, I stood before the board asking you guys to vote yes to expand the early childhood program. So I do first off want to say thank you for that. Because of that decision that you guys made, we were able to serve roughly about 120 more students this year. As well as we were able to make many improvements to our program, the structure, the staff, our materials that we could buy, curriculum, all of those things have continued to improve our preschool program. The main reason I stand before you tonight is to ask you again to make early childhood a priority for our district. This year, the EC staff have worked hard at implementing best practices for our students, but we've run into several obstacles. A few of these include unsafe gross motor spaces, bathrooms that our students cannot independently access, and support staff not being available when they're needed because they're at another building. Another problem is that we don't have room to, at our current buildings, to add more classrooms to continue to grow our program. Several of the EC staff created a list with Dr. Bauman that details many more obstacles that we've run into. Hopefully you've already had a chance to look at that list. These problems can be solved if early childhood were to have a building built for them that is made for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. I'm truly confident that an early childhood school would positively impact the students of Belvedere, and that impact would continue as these preschoolers move up through the grades. So I'm urging you, I don't know if you're going to discuss tonight, but just in the future when you are discussing the early childhood school, that you approve that building. It will have a valuable influence, not only on our youngest learners, the little ones that we get to work with, but the entire Belvedere community. So thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board this evening? Okay. Moving on. Next up are our consent agenda items. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any members of the board would like to take out for separate consideration?
Number 8.
Okay. Any others? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 2 through 7 and 9 through 13 as presented?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hope.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Do I have a motion to approve agenda item number 8 as consent agenda item number 8 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
So I see very clearly identified and called out in multiple places, both in the update we received as board members as well as throughout the rationale for the hire and all the things that have been well documented and demonstrated. The need exists and why and what the numbers are that drives that. The disconnect for me, or the concern, the area of concern I have is that then when we turn to the client service agreement, we're looking to hire one full-time SLP for bilingual SLP services, but nowhere within the agreement does it stipulate or indicate that that's a requirement or expectation, or that's, the role is being called, FTE, full-time employee, FTE, bilingual speech pathologist. But I'm not seeing that called out specifically. I mean, I read through the agreement a couple times, I'm gonna be honest, once I get into some of the later paragraphs, maybe I skimmed. But how do we have assurances, or where do we make assurances that this individual will meet the needs of being a bilingual SLP?
So we have contracted with Agape Therapies previously, and so they have bilingual speech pathologists, and that's why we've worked with them. As far as addressing the needs of students, we have students that might be newcomers, then we have students who are in bilingual classrooms, so that second language support is needed, and they may be struggling with basic language acquisition, but they also may be identified with some articulation difficulties, expressive and receptive language development. So in order to support that, speech pathologists would be able to do screenings in their native language and identified we've already had students that potentially needed evaluations, and we've been using sometimes our early childhood bilingual speech pathologist who's actually assigned to early childhood previously. So this was a really high need.
Right, so I
for
get
us.
that, I completely support it. What I'm saying is the contract we're signing doesn't stipulate that the individual will be bilingual, or that the position for which we're hiring is a bilingual speech pathologist. So I guess I'm just saying, I mean, and I'm not saying that they would attempt to, but at some point in time, if they're unable to do that, but send us a non-bilingual speech pathologist, then I guess, technically speaking, I'm not an attorney, it could be inferred that, well, we met the burden of the contract, we provided an English-speaking, what we're indicating and approving as a board is that we're trying to contract for the services of a full-time bilingual speech pathologist. But the agreement does not call out that this is to be a bilingual speech pathologist.
So I believe this is a correction that that Agape can make.
Oh, great, okay.
That's-
So
Just add
for
that
me,
language.
Just to add the word bilingual.
yes, that would be great.
Yes.
For me, tonight I would vote no and hope that it would come back on the 5th, so that we could vote on it then, because
We can make an amendment and
That's what I'm
approve it
saying,
tonight.
can we just?
that,
yeah,
okay,
that-
so how would we do that? So help me understand. We
We
would
can
just
make a motion
amend
to amend this
that,
contract.
that if the agreement is, because obviously they have to agree to it, right? We can't just say we're amending it, they have to agree to it as well.
Right, somebody has to agree to it first, so we could approve it tonight with the amendment
Okay,
that you're adding the word bilingual to the contract.
okay, and then they would have the ability, is that binding then? And they would not have the ability to say,
No.
well, wait, that's not what was presented initially, or what we presented
They
to
could
initially?
decline the contract then
They could
because we're
just
changing
Got
the
it.
contract.
Okay,
And we
Is
can have
somebody
it
going to
done
make that?
I
very
move
quickly.
to amend and add, I don't know what the language
Add
exactly.
the word bilingual to the qualifications required
Sure.
in this contract. Is there a second?
second,
Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, we're gonna vote on the amendment. Roll call, please.
All right, Mr. Booker.
Aye.
And I heard Mrs. Whitcomb.
aye,
All right, Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. All right, and then we need to have a motion to approve the contract as amended.
So moved.
second,
Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk. Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Okay, moving on to roll call action items. We've got some policies here. Are there any revisions to the existing Board of Education policies any members of the board would like to take out for separate consideration? I think we've got 4 on here tonight. Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion and a second to approve roll call action items 1 through 4, revisions to existing Board of Education policies as presented?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hope.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Moving on to roll call, item number 5, revisions for the 2024-2025 parent handbook. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the revisions of the 2024-25 parent handbook as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Whitcomb and Mr. Herrera? Any discussion?
Again, the number of restrictions, revisions were minimal. I mean, there weren't a ton that were there, but I think we might prepare to expect that perhaps there'd be maybe a bit more last year, but I do know that it came to us late, but I think these are recommended, and I think it is something we should incorporate.
Anyone else? All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hope.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Next up, do I have a motion and a second to approve the remote e-learning days as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone who reached out. I think the board as a whole and individual board members encouraged people to weigh in, and in significant numbers, people did. And again, I don't, that should never be the single consideration, popular opinion that weighs into, that's not all that board members filter for or evaluate for, but it was great. It was great to get so much input and so much response. I think as a board, we ought to keep encouraging people to do that publicly. Maybe it helped, I don't know, maybe it didn't. But I hope that people will stay very engaged on a number of other topics and subjects as well. And if you can't be present at a meeting, that you will do what a very high number of people did in this particular case, from as immediately as just after last week's, or last month's board meeting rather, right up through the weekend. We were still getting input. So I thought that was great. I thought it was great that the call was heeded to make your voice heard. And I, for one, really appreciate that people did that.
I would just like to say this one's a tough one because I see two sides. We saw during COVID, e-learning wasn't great, right? And by the same token, adding days at the end of the school year doesn't appear to be great. It's like we're picking between two not great things. We've had so many things that we vote on, and the board gets to decide. This is one I think is really going to come down to, if we pass it, the fidelity of this comes down to the execution by the administration, because the details are there, but it's not super detailed, and when it's going to get implemented and how it's going to get implemented. And so the success of this very much lies in the implementation. And so I hope that if this gets passed, we really focus and cross our T's and dot our I's, both for the teachers and of course for the students and everybody. So it's as successful as we can have it be.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth on this. I'm gonna vote for it, but I think that anytime, I'm a firm believer that in-person learning is better than virtual learning any day of the week.
As am I.
100%. I think a lot of people stress that virtual learning was better than what we do at the end of the year, and that may be true too. But that doesn't mean either one of them are that great of an option. So I think I'm willing to, I do agree with, I think the crux of this is gonna be the implementation, is gonna be the mechanics of it, on how it works and how smoothly it works or doesn't work. And for at least a year, I think the people that said a lot of districts around the area do it are correct. I know that's not a point you can argue. I think we've been had technology advantages that other places haven't had for a while too. So at least for me, I'm willing to try it for a year to see what happens and see if we can pull it off and see if it works, and then we could re-examine it later if it doesn't.
I know I said last year, but I work in a district that has utilized this and it works. And it works well, and I voted yes last year, I'm gonna vote yes again. I do think, it is gonna come down to admin, so, but I'm happy to hear that it is gonna pass tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with most of the sentiment here. Of course, in-person learning is better than virtual. But here we have an option. This is our go second around to look at this, clean it up, polish it up, present it. But I do agree with some of our board members. It will come down to execution. But this gives us the option to execute a plan. And so, I have confidence in the administration that they can execute this plan, so why not give it a shot?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I don't know why we wouldn't want to have the option, if the pipes burst at one of our secondary schools, those kids are not going to school while we, fix those pipes. The rest of the district is attending days. Those kids aren't making up those days. Those days are gone without something like this. Even if it is never ever used for a snow day, we could find that it would be used in other circumstances. I'm fine if it's used on snow and cold days, and I'm glad the board's going to pass it. Did you have something you wanted to add, Ms. Miller?
I'm good.
All right, roll call please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Next up, do I have a motion and a second to approve the District 100 Discipline Guide as presented?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Ferrer and Ms. Hack. Discussion, admin input, either or?
Dr. Carson, did you have anything you wanted to share? I know you've been working really hard on this project for a very long time.
Yeah, it was a really great collaborative project. We had a lot of stakeholder input. We had the opportunity to share this with Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee and lots of teacher and staff teams. And really what this is building on is the T-charts that our schools have had in place for a long time, and just building a consistent guide so it's clear to our staff, our students, and our families around how we define and respond to behaviors. And so if you have any questions, please let me know.
I don't have any questions. I just have to say, being on the Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee, this was coming up early in the year. There was exhaustive amounts of work by people that went in, and believe it or not, I think this is the beginning, right? This isn't even what will eventually, kind of grow over time, but this was a way to say, here's some great landmarks or starting places, and to think, starting places is 31 pages long is a representation of a whole lot of work that went in, and having the opportunity to hear about it in its infancy and sort of the toddlerhood, and now as it's ready to, at least get some feet under it and be implemented, I think that was a lot of work, and I appreciate everybody who did that, was involved.
Any other comments or discussion? Roll call please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Agenda item 8, do I have a motion and a second to approve the 24-25 administrative contract for 9-month administrator, Belvedere South Middle School Dean as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Herrera and Ms. Huck. Any discussion? Roll call please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Agenda item 9, do I have a motion and a second to approve the 24-25 administrative contract for a 12-month administrator, middle school special education supervisor as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Huck and Mr. Herrera. Discussion?
Yeah, this is this is an added one, this isn't a replacing person, is it? We're adding another one?
Correct.
Yes,
That's
so
what
we
I'm-
split the position that used to
Right.
be middle school outplacement and the high school, right? So right now it's middle school and outplacement and a high school supervisor.
Yeah, knowing this, I mean, nothing's cheap anymore. I mean, I get that part. I mean, this is not gonna be a cheap hire, which I'm all for. I'm not against it by any stretch of the imagination. We just we had what I thought, in my personal opinion, was a pretty damning report of the special ed review a year ago. And I'm hoping this is gonna be one of the first steps in improving it, and we'll monitor that as we go along. And I know this isn't the cure-all, I 100% understand that. This isn't gonna turn the page, make it all better tomorrow. But I hope this is a first step to a continuing process toward fixing something that wasn't well before.
Absolutely, agreed.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the 24-25 administrative contract for a 12-month administrator, high school special education supervisor as presented?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Herrera and Mr. Booker? Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Herrera.
Aye.
Mr. Booker.
Aye.
Mr. Zickert.
Aye.
Mrs. Whitcomb.
Aye.
Mrs. Hauk.
Aye.
Ms. Mayville.
Aye.
I do want to recognize that we have both of our new supervisors here today, Jessica Grafey and Jeanette Jurek. So they are joining us, and we are very excited to have them here. Welcome. Did either of you want to say anything?
I'm very excited to be part of District 100. I'm looking forward to learning and meeting everybody in the district.
I'm just gonna echo that, honestly, I've been watching to work in Belvedere, I'm very excited to be here. The staff, the administration's been very open and welcoming, and I've read through the audit, and there's some work, and I'm looking forward to working with it with this team and with the administrators and the staff that's already here.
Welcome to both of you. We're very excited to have you on board.
Thanks for coming tonight. Okay, board discussion, facilities master plan update. Who's taking the lead on this? Ms. Armstrong?
I
Michelle?
I am happy to take the lead on this.
I'm on vacation today, so, but I'm sure where we were starting.
We've obviously spent a lot of time on this and tried to take back the feedback that we had from the board at our last meeting to update the tiers and really try to do some prioritization. So tonight, what I want to do is walk through that attachment there. There's a few things of celebration. I think $3.9 million in that facility needs assessment projects that had been identified have been completed. A big part of that was the work that happened via ESSER dollars. But I think it just is really, really validating that we identified the work that needed to be done. We targeted that work and we executed on that work. And that is what we will be able to do regardless of the next steps here. We as an administration know where we need to be working and prioritizing and bringing that forward to the board. Tonight, what I want to do is walk a little bit through those tiers again to highlight what we have identified now as the next priority steps. Those next priority steps in the facility needs assessment come to a total of about $23 million. So if you're in that document, you see the first line up at the top there is talking about the work that's already been completed. Then what we did, working as a team with Mr. Winters and Mrs. Armstrong and myself, really dug into that facility needs assessment and determined what absolutely was mission critical. We heard from the board that safer and more secure entrances was mission critical. We know a lot of the HVAC pieces, mission critical. And that, when we look at just those items that absolutely are the next level of priority, we come to that $23 million mark, okay? Then you see underneath that what remains there in the facility needs assessment for each of those sites. So to be clear, those are still things that need to be done, but they aren't that very, very highest tier of priority, okay? So that's what you see in that first piece. Then if you look down into that chart, you see those tiers built out around what the board indicated was most important to them. So next steps for Perry Elementary School, next steps to expand Everest High School, next steps for an early childhood center. So that's what I'm gonna sort of walk through next. And what you can see here is tier 2, all right, next steps of improvement, and then those projects highlighted, Perry, Everest, early childhood. And we know that by highlighting Everest, we're highlighting the clinic, because really that's what it's about. It's about relocating the clinic so we can utilize more space that is available. So if you scroll all the way down to that initial scope, okay, there you see that $23 million given to the facility needs that are most immediate, most urgent. There you see our options with Perry School, anywhere from 6.7 to 24.3 million that needs to be determined by the board what we might do there. You see options with early childhood, which is 19.6 to 22 million, okay? You see your options with Everest, and you see your options with the clinic. If we put together all of those items at the maximum possible part of that cost spectrum, we are looking at $71.3 million in sort of those most prioritized, most urgent needs. If you'll recall, the total for the facility needs assessment alone was that $110 million. If we did this, okay, if we said these are the projects that we want to prioritize, we could then again annually be looking at what additional facility needs need to be addressed. This, I think, at least hopefully gives you an idea of what that might cost, what we might be able to do. And at that September 5th board meeting, Stiefel will come in and talk about, if this is what you want to do, here's how you can fund it. So here's what that would look like. Once we've heard from Stiefel, and once we know what direction the board wants to in fact go, then we can lay out exactly what it looks like in terms of timeline. Where are we going to start? There are some logical places to start. If we build an early childhood center, right, that's going to change some of the capacity in some of our other schools. So in some regards, starting there makes some sense. The board has also indicated over many meetings that the Perry is a real strong priority. So if we want to start in those areas, that will help us to know what those next steps are. So those, that gives you sort of the overview of what you're looking at here. We also have the information back on the appraisal for Kishwaukee. I don't think we want to publicly discuss that appraisal information, but you do have that there as well to sort of give you an idea of where that building is costed out at potentially for sale and what we might be able to do in terms of moving forward on that. So very quickly, that is the broad overview. Mrs. Armstrong, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Winters, anything that you wanted to highlight that I did not touch on?
You did a great job on that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm not sure, but thank you, I appreciate it. Joanne, anything you wanted to highlight?
The only thing I would highlight is, again, with that discussion about what the board's will is with the Kishwaukee School could change that initial tier, because we are saying in that initial tier that the next steps is putting 1.4 million into that building. And so depending on, diving into that appraisal and what the board really wants to look at that side, that's all very contract driven at this point, and the discussions of what we want to do with sale property is a closed conversation at this point, because we haven't made those discussions, which is why it's not publicly available. But that would potentially change that. And on the next board meeting, we'll also have PMA here, who is a municipal advisor working with Stiefel to give us both the municipal outlook of how we are doing business, what will happen with bond ratings, things of that nature, as we start looking at what we want to do. So it'll be kind of a co-presentation, so you can ask, our investment side with Stiefel, and you can also talk to the public entities of PMA as our municipal advisor as well.
And as we look at that, for example, if we take 1.4 million off of our bottom line here, that again allows us to prioritize some additional needs in that facility needs assessment and continue to work through that document. Again, it's 10-year plan, and we felt like probably the best way to start thinking about moving forward with this was to really make it a living, moving document where we can be responsive to have prioritized needs year to year to year based on what our budget year looks like and based on what pricing looks like and all the other things that we need to consider as we continue to walk down this pathway.
Yeah, this will also, kind of the master plan allows us also to look at that budget forecast and say, we've been putting between $2 and $3 to $4 million into health, life, safety, or to the O&M budget itself. Those are the conversations that we're going to be having with how we fund it, and that money is still going to meet those needs assessments and what we're doing and how we want to move forward with this. So it's not a stagnant look at what we're going to be doing, so that we can take into account tracks and outdoor space and classrooms and, all the things that we have identified in Perry that depends on which group we're going through. And so just kind of getting that direction.
Feedback, thoughts, comments, questions?
Well, first of all, not the Perry thing, the Kishwaukee thing.
Yeah.
I agree, we need to put, we have to put money in that in the future, but I think if we let the last meeting, we're making $300,000 on that a year profit. That would be really nice to know where that $300,000 went the last few years, because we've made $300,000 more than 1 year. So I'm sure we paid for that 1.4 million in the time we've been doing that, because we've been doing it quite a while. And let's just say we didn't make anything and we just put that money aside, it's 4 years and we're even, and we still have the building. If we put it in, maybe it's worth more. I'm not saying we should do that, but I think those are considerations. The Perry thing, maybe and I said this at the business services meeting, so I'm just repeating myself from the people that went to that one. The Perry thing, we voted 6-1 to do something with Perry. I don't know why Perry isn't the head of the list I get the safe entrances and stuff like that. I do. I realize we should do that. I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but that's the stuff that should be ahead. We didn't vote on anything else. I'm not saying we won't vote on a clinic. I'm not saying we won't vote on expanding Everest. I'm a big supporter of Everest. I talked to Mike Lascola quite a bit on Thursday about Everest. So it's not like I'm a detractor of Everest. I'm the opposite. We also look at the Early Childhood Center. I'm not against expanding early childhood either. But we promised we would do Perry. And we haven't done anything with Perry to my knowledge yet. We're still kind of throwing it in with everything else, and now another year is gonna pass. Because we certainly aren't gonna do anything this school year with Perry, that I can tell. And I'll get pictures. I got a picture today of, I hope they fixed it. There was a power wire down in the crosswalk, and they said it'd been there a year, or since the summertime. I don't know if that was ComEd or whatever, but that gives the perception, good or bad, whether there's a reason or not, that we're neglecting Perry. And we have neglected Perry in the past. That's the problem with this and not having prioritization, is that stuff like, we mentioned the track, we mentioned the tennis courts, we mentioned stuff like that. We're spending tenfold more on that stuff now than we would have if we'd have fixed it when we should have. And now it's costing us a heck of a lot more money. We don't have a choice. I'm worried if we don't come up with some prioritization list, we're gonna have that happen to more than the track, more than the tennis courts. It's gonna be buildings, it's gonna be other stuff. We're gonna commit all this money we have here to something else to build new stuff, which I'm not against, but I also think we have to weigh that against maybe what we need to spend it on other things too. That's why I think we need to come up with a formulative plan of how we're gonna do that. And I think when we meet with Stiefel, I know what our bonding power can be, but I also think the taxpayers need to be really, really clear about what the financial impact of that's gonna be too. It's not that we can't do it, it's should we do it? And maybe we should, maybe we should, but I think that's a major ask. I mean, we're still paying on the bonds for North 20-some years later.
So a couple things there. I think, I mean, I agree there needs to be a prioritization of projects. We're the ones that do that. We haven't told anyone what we want to do with Perry yet. The vote was, do we close Perry? Do we keep Perry open? Okay. The vote's 6-1 to keep Perry open. So now, as part of the discussions going forward, the question is, what do we do with Perry? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to just start throwing money into the Perry building if the Perry building's not going to be there. We've got a bunch of options here that range from, you know, just fix what's wrong at Perry to upgrade Perry to expand Perry to build a new Perry. So, and the other thing we have going here is that we've been told over and over that it doesn't make any sense to do these projects one at a time because we're gonna spend a lot more money if we do that than if we can bundle some projects and do them at the same time. If we're ordering, I don't know, drywall, we get a better price on drywall if we order it in bulk, just like anything else you order in bulk. So I agree that we need to start prioritizing things. But I also think that it doesn't make any sense to do these items one at a time. If, you know, we need to decide what we're going to do, and then we need to look at timeline, what makes sense fiscally and logistically, and plot them out at that time. And I think for me, a lot of that is going to depend on how this shakes out financially. I'm really interested to hear the financial presentation that we have coming up, because we're at quite a range dollar-wise here of possibilities. And I think hearing our options with respect to the financials will help us make some of these decisions and decide what we're able to do. And I also think it's important, you know, we got feedback from the community when we did the Facilities Master Plan Committee. I do think it will be important to find out from the community, you know, once we have the information in our hands to say, okay, if we do X, Y, and Z, this is going to cost, you know, the person who owns a $200,000 house X amount extra on their property taxes. That's going to be really, really important for the people of our community to know. And it's going to be important for us to get the feedback from them. Okay, if my property taxes are going to go up, you know, $300 a year, I, taxpayer, would like to see you prioritize this project, but not this project. So it's going to be a process here while we get those pieces in place. But I completely agree with Mr. Zuckert. We've got a lot of work to do. And I think it's good that we have scheduled these special meetings so that we can kind of concentrate on making some decisions and figuring out how we're gonna go forward on this.
I agree with what both of you have said, but even more so, the importance of having more detail of our prioritization in the near term is important, just like Perry. There's things we know we have to do at Perry, and some of those are in here, and other things in the district, some of them are in here, some aren't. And the financial report will help us in a lot of ways with that. But some of the things, I will take one, for example, early childhood not coming up till tier 3. Even if we built a center, or someone donated money to build a center, that's not going to be here for 3 years. And I've asked several times, what is our short-term plan to expand? We're going to have to do things with the facilities we're at right now to continue, right? Someone just talked about it today. We should know those things. We should know our plan, you know, while we look at all this and look at those financial things too, because some money's going to have to be spent regardless, right? And we should know what that is and what that entails in more detail.
And I do think a lot of that depends on, you know, if the board decides we're going to build an EC Center, we're going to Band-Aid those things that absolutely need to be done right now. We're not going to spend a ton of money on that. You know, maybe maybe Courtney can lift the littles under the toilet for another couple years so that, you know, instead of redoing the bathrooms. But if we know there's gonna be an EC Center in 3 years, we Band-Aid stuff. If we know that there's gonna be a new Perry, we Band-Aid stuff. If we know there's not gonna be a new Perry, yep, put that roof on, you know, start getting stuff. But those are all decisions that we have to make, and I agree, the sooner we start making those decisions and getting a plan going, the better, because what we decide to do now does depend a lot on what we plan to do 3 and 5 years down the road. If we look at this in a vacuum, it's just gonna be, it's gonna cost us more money, and it's not a plan then, it's doing what we've always done, which has just been dealing with the now, repairing this as it breaks, repairing this as it breaks, and the whole point of this is to be proactive and forward-thinking, so that we don't have to do that.
And I don't disagree with that. I mean, I concur with most of that. The only part I disagree with is that it was such an urgent need in the spring. We went from the end of January to April, where we had to do something about Perry. I mean, we had to have all those meetings, we had to vote on it, it was intimate, we had to do something about it. And now, it's been since April, we haven't done anything with it. I mean, it's not, and I know we always have a difference of opinion on board work versus staff work, but it's not my job to come to the administration and say, this is what I want at Perry. I want you to put this addition on here, I want you to put this addition on here, I want you to fix these bathrooms, I want you to go buy that piece of land where that old chemical factory was. I don't think that's my role. Now, I think if they bring us a proposal that says, these are the ideas we have for Perry, which one of these is the board comfortable with, I think that's our role, I believe that's our role.
I think that's what we're looking at here, though, and frankly, the committee, the master plan committee did bring a proposal to the board, and the board didn't like it, so we're starting from square one. So we do have the options for Perry, and it is the board's job to, for instance, it wasn't that we had to do something about Perry immediately. We had to decide whether Perry was going to stay open or not, because that was the first step that we needed to know to start rolling down on this list. We needed to know, are we going to, if we're going to close Perry, that's a minimum of $5.5 million that we wouldn't be spending on Perry off the top. It's good to know that we are gonna be spending, you know, 5.5 million minimum on Perry. That gives us a place to start. So it's not, it never was, we have to do something about Perry right now. It's that if we want to get started on this whole process, we need to decide, is Perry closing or staying open? Because whether an elementary school closes or staying open is the, you know, that's kind of the biggest piece of the puzzle to start with. Now that we've decided Perry in some form is going to exist, I mean, it is the board's job to tell the administration, hey, we just want to fix what's wrong at Perry, or we want a brand new Perry on a new site.
What wasn't some of the vote in regards to that, the fact that Perry's a neighborhood school and all the good qualities that come with that, building another school, we're gonna displace those kids and that isn't gonna be intact. So I think some of it has directly to do with Perry, where it is now, that we should be doing some of those things that I think we all kind of thought were neglected,
Well,
right? Like the roof.
And if that's
you know?
the board's choice to,
That's my belief as to what we were voting on then.
whether, okay, I think, my understanding of the Perry vote was, does Perry stay closed, does Perry stay open? And that there has not been agreement among the board as to whether we are going to be working with the existing building. Are we going to be working with an expanded Perry on the same site, or are we going, I mean, we directed, Mrs. Armstrong's put a lot of time into looking at other locations within the Perry district.
Well, right, and I think we've only heard
But
from Tom.
looking into other locations within the Perry district where a new Perry could go. I think we should tell her sooner rather than later that she can stop doing that if that is not the path we want her to go down.
So on that note, yes, I would say prioritizing there is very important. Site selection is going to be very important for possible new location. If we cannot get a couple of site, as part of the site location, that eliminates one of the options of actually replacing Perry with a brand new school. So I would say, probably not the logical next steps is that site selection, narrowing that down with some possible landowners on figuring out if there's the possibility, if that possibility exists. Because if it doesn't, we may not even have that option available for us, for a new school in the Perry zone.
The site survey is due the end of this week, so it officially is late to, you're gonna pay for that survey anyway, so.
Yeah,
It is coming, the appraisal was first, we got that, Friday, now we have the assessment done for the land survey, for buildable areas, and, market values, all of that for that Perry neighborhood is due the end of this week. So the board would have all that information for prep for the September 5th meeting.
Well, and if
So-
the board would like to, on that September 5th meeting, again, I think, we hear the financials. And if the board, even at the September board meeting, would like those options for Perry really built out and wanted to give us a direction, at that time, we know we want to pursue A, B, C, or D, we could certainly bring something like that forward. That is, I think we do have an array of different options here. We've got models of what those options look like, and we can absolutely bring that to the board for an actual vote if that's something we feel prepared to do. And again, that doesn't mean that we're doing that. That just means that that's the direction that the board would like us to take. That wouldn't mean we can't go to the community to get some feedback. That wouldn't mean that we wouldn't continue to engage them in a dialogue. So that could be a next step we could take at the September board meeting if that's a direction I'm hearing.
So I would say that I concur that we will batch the work, the projects, right? We will likely decide on perhaps multiple things that become the priorities, and then in order to economize our dollars, we will likely do projects with some simultaneousness to how do we approach that. However, in these now early phases of decision-making, I would really like us to silo some things and really drill down on, okay, so maybe we have a couple of priorities. I don't know where I stand on early childhood in a building being in the early side or the later side, but that's up for conversation. But I think whatever those, we need to fully vet out the idea of, okay, if it's Perry, then let's start there and get all the good direction and all the things that have been said here. And really make some decisions on Perry and then say, okay, what would simultaneously in the next tier of priorities be the right things for us to start on? And two things to that end that I want to add and echo in large part some of what it is that Ms. Mayville said, which is when we say we, it's not we, it's all of our money, right? And so the engagement of the community, we're spending your money, right? So I'm just going to implore people to get involved here and make your voices heard and have be educated on, right? We're going to spend money, and in all likelihood, we have to acknowledge, not in all likelihood, we're going to at some point in time in some of these projects, in the near or far term, be borrowing in one method, form, or another. And so, if you're here in the room, tell your friends and neighbors. If you're listening online, tell your friends and neighbors. Be at meetings, come on September 5th, hear the real-time projections of how we would get there, and as Ms. Mayville said, what the impact is to you as an individual, so we have the greatest amount of input before we get much further down the road. But deciding among the different purple, I'm gonna say purple, aqua, yellow, beige, I would like to see us make some decisions about the priorities in purple first, that being Perry as it relates to what we're going to do. And again, we're going to hear things, and maybe everyone would agree that it would be good for Joanne to bring some information to the September 5th meeting. But prioritizing how we're going to address Perry first is of significant importance to me. Second thing I would like to say, and I know that this likely exists, and to what degree it could or would be made available to the board, I don't know, but I'm going to ask. Part of how we got into the place we did with Perry is avoidable in the future in some of our other buildings. And that is to say, what is our proactive rather than reactive preventive maintenance plan so that we are simultaneously keeping up on our buildings so that once we get 6 years down the road in this 10-year plan, we don't have other buildings that have major issues and we then, though the board, whomever they are at the time, have to pivot and address things at that point that have unfortunately been deferred or not addressed or, so I think I, for one, as a board member, would like to ask that if the information can be made available on a regular rotating schedule, and again, I'm not here to say whether it can be or not, but, you know, what are we doing to prevent being in this place again where we have kicked the can down the road in any one or, you know, few areas so that none of our other buildings, I understand no other building is 100 years old. I get that. But you can get into a very deep hole relatively quickly in these commercial buildings. If maintenance is deferred, you can very quickly get behind and get to a place where it's now a replacement rather than a repair. And then the last thing I would say is I would like to see us have a discussion that comes to near the top as it relates to the track and the tennis courts that inadvertently, for whatever reason, we didn't get bids, all the things that went into that, you know, that situation or contributed to it. But those to me seem to be potential issues that we already know as a result of being deferred are going to cost us more money to do. And I would suspect have a direct impact on, you know, students' ability to, you know, utilize them and be successful from either a sports perspective or, you know, just a physical education perspective. So I would like to see us bring that in here if maybe we don't do some of the things that, and I don't know, I'm just spitballing. If we don't do some of the things at Everest, you know, because we're not going that route, maybe there's some money there, I don't know, but I think we have, I would, for one, like to see us bring that back to the forefront of conversation on those two particular items.
And I think Joanne does have an update on the tennis
So,
courts and tracks,
We
right?
talked at great length about the tennis and track at North at Business Services, and it's in the committee meeting that we were getting guidance from them that we were taking the right approach to it. It is going to be completed this coming summer because we are going to be bidding it out. We're taking core samples because this is a much larger problem. Yes, it was deferred for way too long and it got to this place. But from all reports we've been hearing, it has never been a stable track or tennis court. So they are taking the core samplings now. That is being already put into the building, and yet it cost us a lot more than it probably should have had it been done appropriately the first time and had been maintained. That is part of the needs assessment, and what started this whole project was getting a look of where we are and setting that schedule. That needs assessment goes out to 10 years, talks about the deferred maintenance and the routine maintenance of when you're doing ropes and when you're doing those things. So that's kind of our living document, as we're going to be moving things through there is, okay, this is scheduled for an every 7 year or an every 10 year, but we're having massive problems with it right now. So we're going to move this up to a 1 to 3 year, and then it will be in that next rotation for 10 years down the road. This is where we should be. But that was the key component behind the needs assessment, is getting an idea where we were. But the tracks and the tennis courts over at North Campus are definitely in this year's building budget process that we know we've got some estimates and we're going to be building that out. It will be bid in the fall, winter timeframe so that we have it secured, we have those things happening.
And I'm sure Mr. Winters would be happy to come give us a little talk at a future board meeting to talk about his job and how it is literally to plan these repairs out and make sure that we stay on track and stay up to date with maintenance and what he's doing on that end, so that board members really understand that that work is being done.
Yeah, absolutely, I'd love to do that. I know Joanne and I have talked about, even with Dr. Sugar, but as part of our long-range facility, our whole board, just to give an update of where we are in the district. I know in the previous district, we did submit a plan for 10 years out. You know, because obviously it changes, but I think right now, we have been looking at everything, and believe me, there are significant issues out there, and it almost seems that, you know, we get one done and 5 pop up. And, sometimes we're attached with the laser light, you know, something pops up and we're distracted. Yeah, I would love to do that. As far as the, track, I think the track up north is going to be, significant funding. There have been issues there from my understanding since the, track went in with some cracks, which leads us to the, course samples. Same thing with the, tennis courts. I think we're going to have some sobering, dollar amounts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think that all these things have life expectancies. I mean, the industry has life expectancies on boilers, they have life expectancies on tracks, they have life expectancies on tennis courts, so on and so forth. I mean, I just asked about the track because I didn't know I forgot when it was put in. It was 2007. I think it was resurfaced again in 2012 was the last time. 13 years on a track, that's a pretty heck of a life expectancy, whether it's good or bad. I will also argue that I do agree that it's gonna need significant work. My guess is it's either have drainage problems or unsettling under there. I'm just guessing, I'm not an expert in that by any stretch. But I also know that we could have re-topped that off for about 30 grand every time. And it would have been a heck of a lot cheaper than what we're gonna do now. I mean, even if we did it every 4 years, we'd be way money ahead of what we're gonna do now. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking at, is that we look at all this stuff as we go along, so we don't have these issues like that, and we don't have the I know it's not I'm not blaming you at all, but I'm just saying that if we can be proactive and get maintenance schedules on all this stuff, whether we had them before or not, it's irrelevant. Now, we have to deal with what we have now, not what did or didn't get done before.
Yeah, which last year, before actually this, we engaged CES out of Belvedere, engineering firm, to look at, to give us updates annually of our tracks, our tennis courts, and our parking lots, and anything that we see that popped up, which they just did this annual one, I think, 2 weeks ago or last week. So, to your point, to be aware of the things that are out there. Now, we're aware, it's just that we're aware of a lot.
But I think quite candidly, that factors into how we move forward with some of this other stuff too. Because if you find out we have a lot of whatever it is, that's gonna have to factor in on how we spend money too.
Yeah,
That's-
sobering numbers.
I mean,
means what,
that's kind
you
of
know,
why
what are
I'm
those
pushing that a
dollars?
little too.
Yeah.
This kind of goes along with that. I think it would be helpful to me and maybe to the other board members. When you look in tier one, we have what's going on now, which is next steps, and then remaining. I personally would like to see kind of the detailed breakdown of the 6 highest projected spends during that tier, so we can kind of see what's on there, what's not. And I mean, I think that'll help me as far as my opinion on short-term prioritization, right? Because it appears to be the 2 high schools, the 2 middle schools, and then Seth and Caledonia, right? It would help me to know what that 2.5 or 2.5 is, and then the 17.8 is for Belvedere High School. What does that all entail? That would help me.
And that is, and I can include that in your board update, but I mean, it is in here sort of detailed item by item, and we can maybe even highlight those particular ones that are aligned here. But I mean, we are literally pulling directly from the facility needs assessment and describing them
Can we
in,
break
in
those?
simple language
Yep.
here, so that, because obviously it's more complex than the plan itself. So we can definitely provide you that needs assessment with those items highlighted.
Yeah, because I think that'd really be helpful, because I mean, if we look at all new stuff, let's say we have 50 million in new stuff, but we need 50 million in in updates or preventive maintenance or whatever on other stuff, that's 100 million. That maybe we thought we could have spent all on new stuff. And we might have spent it on new stuff and then wondered how we were gonna pay for all the other stuff and deferred, you know, that's my only point.
So by the 5th, are we gonna be looking at making, or I'm asked, when will we, is it the 5th, begin to make intentional decisions about what options remain on the table? Can we build a new building? Can we update fully? And what, if any, new buildings remain available for a different Perry location? And/or are we gonna start getting that granular at this point? Because I think that's really, right, that's where we have to go at this point.
I think it depends on when the
Start
board
to-
feels like it has enough information to make those decisions.
But we're gonna start to
So-
get more of those specific granular information, to Mr. Jorge's point. We have to determine, are sites available, and is that where we're gonna be starting to hear? What of what sites exist as available real estate, what are available, what are, maybe as he pointed out, and has an experience in this space, just because it's available, doesn't mean that, they're willing to sell or open to offers, or any of the reasons that door could close. I think that's a very necessary next step, so we can determine what options we have available.
And I
What
think
are
Mrs.
the real
Armstrong
options?
said that information should be coming in by the end of August, and we should have a lot of that
An
information by the
organization
September
that
5th.
your appraisal for Kishwaukee is doing the land acquisition
Mhm.
survey that we should have by the end of the week.
So the land acquisition survey, it isn't my understanding that it would, but maybe I'm wrong about the scope of the assessment, whether or not so it would be suitable to build on, but whether or not they are amenable to a purchase. You're saying that would be a next tier step after this one? Okay.
And so what we could do for that, so what, again, the timeline I have in my head without talking to Joanne and Sean, is that we have the September 5th. I just really think the board needs to understand the financial picture and feel comfortable with
Yeah.
what those next steps are. Then at the September board meeting, we could build out, again, those 4 options for Perry and exactly what that looks like. If that's where the board wants to
In
go
line with
next,
what-
we can build that out and give the board those 4 choices. And then the board can make a decision if they want, how they want to move forward. If they want to give us a consensus, they want to vote to give us direction. And again, it really still is about giving us direction. That doesn't mean we bought the property. That doesn't
Sure.
mean, like, it just gives us
I say
those
yes to
next
what you just
steps.
said. I think
Okay,
what you just said
perfect.
sounds like the right direction to go
All right,
for September 5th.
we can do that. Or, we can do that.
Anything else on facilities master plan? All right, upcoming contracts, renewals and reports, anything you want to highlight, Dr. Shuck?
Nope, no, there isn't.
All right, I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Shuck for administrative reports.
All right, I'm gonna click through the superintendent comments. We had to forego them last month because of our tornado and rapid departure from our meeting tonight. We had the best day. This is such a great day. Welcoming staff back to the school. It just brings this wonderful energy. We had our students, our cheerleaders there to welcome our staff, as well as our drum line from both of our high schools. We saw the elementary staff in the morning and the secondary staff in the afternoon. And it just changes the whole energy of the district. Good work took place all day today. Lots of great PD. So excited to get this. I just feel like there's a lot of positive momentum. I think we're going to do some really great things this year. We have new staff. Dr. Eady, do you know how many new staff?
If we count certified and non-certified, probably like 70, 80. I mean, it's, yeah.
Which is a very reasonable number when we compare
Yeah.
with years past.
Yep.
So a great new slate of individuals coming through. I heard so many positive comments today from new staff who came up to me and said that the energy here in Belvedere has been terrific. Everybody's been positive. They liked the new teacher orientation, and they also are really excited to be here. We have a lot of veteran new staff joining us in the district, so that's really exciting. We learn from our new staff, and it learns as much as the new staff learns from us. Just really excited about, again, the year and welcoming those individuals. As we discussed at our last meeting, but I wanted to highlight again today, we are so happy to be offering 2 meals a day at no cost to each and every one of our students every day. Mrs. Armstrong did really the legwork to make that happen. It is going to be likely a break even or even a little bit better than that for us as a district to be able to offer this. And in addition to that, we know it's going to make a difference for so many kids and families. So a fantastic development. Supported by the D100 Foundation for Excellence, we had our annual Haircuts for Kids, Back to School in Style, 180 haircuts. You guys, if you ever have a moment on this day to come and see these kiddos, Mrs. Ashens is there all day with them. They are just lit up. Their parents are so happy. It is an absolutely fantastic partnership with the Foundation for Excellence in Education that makes a difference for these kiddos and puts smiles on their faces, makes them feel good coming into school. Boone County Fair, we got to see so many members of the community out of the Boone County Fair. If you don't have your D100 sunglasses, you should have come to the fair. They are spectacular. We had, thanks to Ms. Hadley, we had brand new colors this year. What a hit. The pink sunglasses were flying out of the booth. It really was fantastic. And again, it's the beginning of the school year is with the Boone County Fair. And also on the next slide, Stuff the Bus. We are so fortunate to have wonderful partnerships in this community that fill this bus with school supplies for our students. And we were able to do that again this year and really excited about that. It's going to be a great year. I'm so excited. The staff is terrific. The energy is great. The momentum is strong. When we look at our strategic plan and the goals that we met in terms of achievement, graduation rate, attendance, things are really moving in the right direction. The momentum is in our favor, and I think we're really going to see some great things this year. Substitute job fairs, don't miss out. We still have one of those coming up here September 5th. We have a ever expanding sub pool. Last year we hit over 70% in terms of those sub fill rates, better than all of our surrounding districts, and we think we're going to continue to really do better there. When we have subs in the classrooms, it allows us to provide opportunities for our kids and opportunities for our staff in terms of professional development, as well as the peace of mind with knowing if you're ill, you can be out of your building and somebody's going to be able to cover your classes and it's not going to fall on your colleagues. Really fantastic work coming out of Dr. Adie's department there. So that's my superintendent's comments. Any questions or feedback? You guys are pumped up. We're gonna have a good year. Strategic plan updates. I'm not gonna walk through the strategic plan updates today. We're really just kicking off the year, but we have lots of great things happening there, and I'll spend a little bit more time on that next week or next month when we talk through my goals as well as what we hope to achieve as a district. And we have special education department updates from Alicia Cardian.
Yay! I'm so excited to provide the update. Again, last month we were kind of cut short with the tornado. But the good news is that the updates are better because we have our team here, right? I didn't have that announcement last time. So our team is here. You can see our picture. Here we go, our team picture with our administrative assistants. And the next part is really about what we've been doing in the short term that we've been a team. So it started with meet and greet during the district picnic. We had a table for meet and greet with special education department. We organized some resources for writing IEPs, best practices, and so we were giving out these folders, and we had 52 people stop by and say hello, so that was really exciting. And I followed up with just sending everyone in special education department those resources electronically. Some of them, again, will become some professional development in the future, so I've been getting some emails around that. We have also been meeting with administrators, building administrators at all levels, just kind of planning, looking at staffing, looking at some of the practices with IEPs. Again, some common themes actually come from the audit's recommendations as well. One of the, tomorrow we have a divisional leads meeting, our first one. One of the very small but great recommendations was just making sure that we have a department agenda that includes the district mission statement, and in the future, as we develop a vision statement for the department, that that agenda is commonly used for all of our meetings. So whether it's leads meeting, IEP leadership, and so on. I also have some long-term actions. We were able at the end of July to meet with IEP leadership team. That team has representation from every single building, and they were very well aware of the audit and some of those pieces. So what we kind of dove in is an activity with some common themes that came out of the audit, and that I mentioned the vision, also being visible and what that looks like. How do you ensure that when you're visible, you're supportive across all of the buildings? Now with that new team, and something that kind of repeated throughout the audit was a professional development and IEP processes and IEP writing. So we kind of dove in looking at those themes and specific things that came out of it. So just getting some feedback. Another one was continuum of services. So there was a discussion around that, and right now the continuum of services isn't posted on the district website, so that is the part we will be updating together to make sure that it's accessible across of all of our services and programs, and that it's on the district website for our staff members as well as the community members. So explanation of those services. Next, and of course, because the school year is just starting, the plan is to have a call to create a task force, because we will need more stakeholders' voices. And again, we didn't start the process in sending that information out prior to the beginning of the school year. And having that task force will allow us to prioritize some action steps specifically for this upcoming school year. And again, prioritizing based on some items of maybe higher urgency, and having alignment with the district strategic plan. I did want to say that we already have this overarching system of beliefs, and everyone that I've been talking to is very supportive, informative, and ready to help, ready to share information. So I think it's going to be a fantastic year with planning. I also know that as we go into the process of some action steps, we will be developing a timeline so we can actually accomplish different items and report on them as to what they happen, whether it's some procedures, whether it's training, and finally regular updates to the Board of Education with those steps. And I believe that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Yeah, I just have one really quick comment. I think that, I like the plan that you came up with. I also think, having gotten a lot of feedback last year, that communication is really gonna be important, especially in the beginning. Those are moments you never get back if we don't take advantage of them now. I think that as we start the school year, you'll have the moving parts like 70-30 arrangements and things like that. You'll have placement issues and staffing issues and things like that. And I think it's not the process, it's a lot of it is about process, but I think it's explaining the process and having people understand why the process operates like it does will go a long ways in moving us forward in those departments. I have a daughter who's a spec ed teacher, and I thought I knew a lot about spec ed until I talked to her, and she explains to me how much I don't know, and she's probably right. But I also know that those issues come up more now maybe than they'll come up as the first few months when you start the school year, and that those are gains we can really make if we explain that stuff, and the communication's thorough now on the front end than it is on the back end. So I really like the development of the plan to start with.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I don't have any kids in the district anymore, but I did, and uniquely for me, because of the composition of our family being a large family with 10 kids and, 4 kids with special needs, we kind of experienced everything across the district. So I just continue to say, as I have to Dr. Shug throughout and prior to that, I think at the educator level, there are some real diamonds, right? I think we've experienced everything from early childhood back in the day to when they were still at the Boone County Center, all the way up through multiple children who graduated from high schools and were receiving special programming. I continually go back to the adage, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I can say unequivocally that parents I talk to who have concerns or issue, that I try to keep directing to the right places, don't have concerns about being cared for at the building level. And so I'm hoping and trusting and leaning into the fact that you've put a structure together now at leadership that I want to celebrate and get behind. And obviously you guys will be empowered by administration to do all the things you need to do to make sure that teachers know not just how much you know, but that know how much you care, and that you are a soft place to fall and a listening set of ears, and that you want to be collaborative and hear what they have to say and all of those things. I've said for decades in a variety of settings, from my children to work, we can focus either on what was or what will be. And so I'm not going to talk any more about what was, right? How we got here is how we got here. But focusing on what rather will be, and wishing the very best of luck in the implementation of a very aggressive approach to taking on, some real steerage changes within special education. I'm excited about it because both as a parent and a community member and people who've experienced a number of types of families with disabilities, every student matters, but these students, it takes them longer, it's harder to get them where they need to be, and so having a strong network of people from the top down into all of those frontline soldiers, paras, teachers, et cetera, and having them feel supported by those that are working collaboratively above and adjacent to them. I am hopeful that this is the beginning of what will be a better direction for special education.
Thank you for the feedback, and I want to tell you that I'm super energized to
Good.
hear that and to be meeting with some superstars. You call them diamonds, I call them superstars, and I think we have the team to do it.
Awesome.
Thanks, Alicia. Anything else for the good of the cause, anyone? All right, I need one. Yes, yeah, oh, God, we're almost there,
I'm
Joanne.
sorry. I did want to give everybody, the next agenda item is collectivity reports. I want to give you a heads up that you've got 5 schools that you've been reporting on now. You will see 11.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot more than 5.
We have now, well, there's the balance report in their activity.
Yeah.
But over the summer, the central office has taken over the elementary student activity account. So you will now get reports on every school's activity reports each month. So that list will be much larger in the coming months, starting next month.
Great. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thanks, everyone. Good luck this week.
Thank you.